The night sky above planet Earth had always fascinated Lieutenant Daniel Clark. As a child, he would spend hours looking up at the stars, wondering what secrets they held. Now, at 32 years old, he stood on the observation deck of the interstellar survey vessel Horizon Seeker, about to find out. "Lieutenant Clark to the bridge," the ship's communication system announced, interrupting his thoughts. Daniel straightened his blue uniform and ran a hand through his short brown hair. The ship had been exploring the outer regions of mapped space for 3 months now. Being called to the bridge usually meant they found something interesting. Captain Lisa Morgan stood by the main viewing screen when he arrived. She was a tall woman with dark skin and sharp eyes that missed nothing. 20 years in space had given her a reputation for caution and intelligence. "We picked up unusual energy readings from the 4th planet in this system," she said, pointing to a holographic display. "Nothing like we've seen before. Sensors indicate it might be artificial." Daniel leaned closer to study the readings. "Could be evidence of intelligent life," he said, trying to hide the excitement in his voice. Humanity had encountered only 3 other intelligent species in its century of space exploration. A 4th would be a major discovery. "I want you to lead the first contact team," Captain Morgan said. "Your background in alien biology makes you the best choice, but be careful. We don't know what we're dealing with." Major Sam Peters, the ship's security officer, frowned. "Captain, I recommend we send drones first. Unknown life forms are always a risk." "Noted, Major," Morgan replied. "But drones can appear threatening. Lieutenant Clark's team will take necessary precautions, including emergency transport beacons." 2 hours later, Daniel led a team of 6 specialists in a shuttle toward the planet's surface. Dr. Nicole Adams, the team's cultural anthropologist, sat beside him checking her equipment. "Nervous?" she asked. "Excited," Daniel replied. "We might make history today." The shuttle passed through wispy purple clouds and revealed a landscape of rolling hills covered in vegetation that looked like silver ferns. In the distance, structures rose from the ground in spiral patterns that seemed both natural and planned. "Those have to be buildings," whispered Ben Lee, the team's linguist. "Definitely artificial." The shuttle landed in an open area a safe distance from the structures. Daniel was first to step onto the planet, his boots sinking slightly into the soft purple soil. The air was breathable but had a sweet smell, like cinnamon and something else he couldn't identify. "Stay alert," he told the team. "Record everything, but don't touch anything without permission." They walked slowly toward the structures, which now clearly appeared to be a settlement. The buildings were made of a material that looked like pearl but stronger. Some rose 10 stories high in elegant spirals. "Movement ahead," warned Kelly Richards, the security specialist, pointing to the largest structure. Several figures emerged and moved toward them. Daniel felt his heart beat faster as he got his first look at the planet's inhabitants. They were humanoid in basic shape, 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. But the similarities ended there. Their skin shimmered with colors that shifted like oil on water, currently showing patterns of blue and green. They stood slightly taller than humans, with long limbs and fingers that had an extra joint. Their faces had large almond-shaped eyes that reflected light like mirrors. Daniel stepped forward, slowly, and raised his empty hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. One alien moved ahead of the others. Its skin shifted to a pattern of gold and white. It studied the humans with obvious intelligence in its gaze. "Hello," Daniel said clearly. "We come in peace." The alien tilted its head and made a series of musical sounds. Ben quickly adjusted the universal translator, but it couldn't process the language yet. The lead alien suddenly raised a hand to its temple, and Daniel felt a strange sensation, like a gentle pressure in his mind. Images appeared in his thoughts, pictures of stars, planets, and ships. "I think it's trying to communicate telepathically," he said quietly to the team. He focused his thoughts on similar images, adding pictures of Earth and humans. The aliens' skin brightened and the pressure in Daniel's mind increased. More complex images formed. The aliens' people, their world, simple concepts. Daniel understood they called themselves the Valorans, and this was their homeworld, Valora. Over the Next few hours, this limited communication grew. The lead alien, who they learned was named Nixara, an ambassador or representative of some kind, invited them into one of the buildings. Inside, the walls glowed with soft light. Living plants seemed to be part of the structure itself, and small, creatures that looked like floating jellyfish drifted through the air, apparently serving as additional light sources. "Their technology is amazing," whispered Dr. Adams. "It seems biological, not mechanical." Nixara led them to a round room where several other Valorans waited. Their skin colors varied. Some showed patterns of purple and blue, others silver and green. They studied the humans with obvious curiosity. The meeting seemed to be going well. Through gradually improving telepathic images, they established basic ideas about their respective species and worlds. Daniel felt proud of how smoothly first contact was proceeding, then everything went wrong. Nixara showed them a ceremonial object, something like a staff with complex markings. Daniel, trying to express interest, reached out to point at one of the symbols, but he misjudged the distance and his finger accidentally brushed against both the staff and Nixara's hand. The reaction was immediate and terrifying. Nixara's skin flashed bright crimson. The other Valorans made sharp hissing sounds and backed away. The telepathic connection filled with images of danger and violation. Nixara stepped close to Daniel, her mirror-like eyes reflecting his shocked face. "Touch me again, human," she threatened, her skin pulsing with angry red light. "You won't survive." The words came through the telepathic link with perfect clarity. The first complete sentence they had managed to exchange, delivered as a deadly warning. The room temperature seemed to drop. Kelly moved her hand toward her weapon, but Daniel subtly signaled her to stop. "I apologize," he projected in his mind, showing images of regret and misunderstanding. "No harm intended." After tense minutes of silent communication, Nixara's skin gradually shifted from red to a cautious orange. She explained through images and broken thoughts that touching another Valoran's skin was deeply intimate, only permitted between family members or life partners. Daniel had committed a serious cultural offense. To make amends, he agreed to participate in a purification ritual, which involved standing in a chamber of colored light for 20 minutes, while Valoran elders chanted. Back on the shuttle that evening, Captain Morgan contacted them. "How did it go?" she asked. "We made contact," Daniel replied wearily. "The Valorans are advanced with technology unlike anything we've seen. It appears to be biological rather than mechanical. But we have a problem. I accidentally violated a cultural taboo. Relations are tense. Can it be fixed?" Morgan asked. "I think so. But there's something else. Orbital scans show their technology is far beyond ours in certain areas. Command will want access to it." Morgan was silent for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different. "New orders just came in, Lieutenant. We need to secure an alliance and technology exchange with these Valorans, by any means necessary." Daniel frowned. "Captain, we've barely established basic communication." "Those are our orders," Morgan said firmly. "Find a way to make it happen." As the shuttle docked with the Horizon Seeker, Daniel wondered how he would bridge the gap with a species that might kill him for a simple touch. 3 months had passed since first contact. The humans had established a small outpost on Valara, a collection of prefabricated structures set up half a mile from the main Valaran settlement. Relations remained tense but workable. Every morning, Daniel woke before dawn to review his notes on Valaran culture. He had filled dozens of digital journals with observations, determined never to repeat his initial mistake. The walls of his small quarters were covered with charts showing Valaran color patterns and their emotional meanings. "You're obsessed," Dr. Nicole Adams told him one morning as she brought him a cup of coffee. She had become his closest friend, on the mission. "I need to understand them," Daniel replied, not looking up from his screen. "Command wants that technology exchange, and we won't get it if we keep offending them." The most difficult part of Valaran society to grasp was their social hierarchy. Unlike human systems based on wealth, birth, or achievement, Valarans organized themselves according to bioelectric signatures. invisible fields that humans couldn't detect without special equipment. The scientific team had created small devices that translated these fields into colors humans could see, but wearing them gave Daniel headaches after a few hours. Still, he wore one whenever meeting with Valorans. That morning, he was scheduled to meet with Nixara. After the touching incident, she had surprisingly been assigned as the official liaison to the human delegation. Daniel suspected it was either a punishment for her or a test for him. He found her waiting at the designated meeting spot between the two settlements. Her skin rippled with patterns of yellow and green, cautious but open, according to his charts. "Good. Morning, Nixara," he said, careful to stand exactly 3 feet away from her, the proper distance for professional interactions. "Morning greet, Daniel," she replied in halting English. The Valarans were learning human language much faster than humans could master their musical speech. For 2 hours, they walked the boundary area while Nixara answered Daniel's questions about Valaran culture. Though her answers were often brief, Daniel noticed she seemed less guarded than in previous meetings. "Your efforts to learn our ways are noticed," she said unexpectedly as they completed their walk. Few humans show such dedication. Daniel felt encouraged by this small compliment. "I find your culture fascinating, especially your biological technology." At the mention of technology, Nixara's skin flickered briefly with silver, a color Daniel hadn't seen before. "Perhaps tomorrow I show you something of our work," she said. The next day, for the first time, Nixara led Daniel into an area of the Valaran settlement that humans hadn't been allowed to visit, their equivalent of research. Laboratories. Unlike human labs filled with metal and plastic equipment, the Valaran facility seemed alive. Transparent tubes filled with glowing liquids connected to pods that pulsed like hearts. Small creatures that resembled insects but with more complex bodies moved purposefully among the equipment. "These are worker beings," Nixara explained, gesturing to the insect-like creatures. "We grow them to perform specific tasks. They are part of our technology." Over the following weeks, Nixara's lessons continued. Daniel learned that Valaran technology merged living organisms with mechanical components in ways that human scientists had only theorized about. They didn't build machines, they grew them. Among the human team, excitement grew. Dr. Paul Johnson, their lead engineer, spent hours discussing possible applications with Daniel after each meeting with Nixara. "If we could adapt even a fraction of their biointegration techniques," he said, eyes bright with enthusiasm, "we could revolutionize our medical technology, our ship designs, everything." But Captain Morgan remained concerned. "They're showing us basic concepts, but nothing that would help us replicate their advanced systems," she said during a team meeting. "We need more." "We can't rush this," Daniel argued. "We're building trust." "I think Nixara is starting to—" He never finished the sentence. The ground beneath them suddenly shook violently. Emergency alarms activated throughout the human outpost. "Seismic activity," called one of the technicians. "A big one." Through the windows, Daniel saw dark clouds forming with unnatural speed. Lightning flashed with strange purple colors. The planet's weather systems, always somewhat volatile, had suddenly turned violent. "All personnel secure equipment and prepare for evacuation," Captain Morgan ordered. Daniel rushed outside. The wind nearly knocked him down. In the distance, he could see parts of the Valaran settlement swaying dangerously. Without thinking, he ran toward it. He found Nixara organizing evacuations, her skin flashing urgent patterns of red and white. When she saw him, her colors briefly showed surprise. "Our building homes can move with minor ground shakes," she explained quickly, "but this is beyond design limits. The nurture center for young ones is in danger." Daniel understood at once. "Our shuttles can transport your people. Let me help coordinate." For the next 3 hours, they worked side by side, evacuating Valaran children and elders to higher ground. The storm intensified, with lightning striking close by and winds throwing debris through the air. They were checking a final building when Daniel spotted a large section of material breaking free above Nixara. Without thinking, he lunged forward and grabbed her arm, pulling her away just as the debris crashed down where she had been standing. The moment his hand touched her skin, he felt a strange electric tingle. Nixara froze. her colors flashing chaotically. When the immediate danger passed and the evacuation was complete, Daniel found himself alone with Nixara in a temporary shelter. Rain pounded on the roof as the storm began to weaken. "I apologize for touching you," he said quietly. "It was wrong, but I saw the danger and reacted." Nixara was silent for a long moment. Her skin settled into a deep blue color that Daniel hadn't seen before. "Your touch endangered my standing," she finally explained, her voice low. "In our society, to be touched by an outsider twice marks one as diminished. Some will question my judgment now." Daniel felt terrible. All his careful study, and he had still made another mistake. "But," Nixara continued, surprising him, "it also preserved my existence. Our people have a saying, 'Life debts rewrite boundaries.' You saved me, so the touch becomes acceptable." For the first time, Daniel felt a real connection forming between them. Not just professional duty, but something like understanding. Their moment was interrupted by an urgent beep from Daniel's communicator. Captain Morgan's voice came through, tense and serious. "Lieutenant Clark, return to base immediately. Long-range sensors have detected multiple vessels approaching the system. They're not human, and according to our Valaran contacts, they're not friendly either." Daniel looked at Nixara, whose skin had shifted to a pattern he now recognized as concern mixed with fear. "What is it?" he asked. "Who's coming?" "Those who would destroy us all," she answered simply. The emergency meeting room in the human outpost was crowded. Captain Morgan stood at the head of the table, her face grim as she activated a holographic display showing the approaching vessels. 7 ships, unknown configuration, she explained, moving in attack formation based on historical patterns. They'll reach Valara in less than 48 hours. Daniel sat beside Nixara, whose skin had taken on an ashen gray color that he had never seen before. The Valaran High Council members present had similar coloration, a sign of extreme distress, he guessed. "You know who they are," Daniel said, quietly to Nixara. She nodded slowly. "The Krev Dominion," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Destroyers of worlds." One of the elder Valarans stood. His name was Thalos. Despite his apparent age, he stood straight and tall. "For 30 of your Earth years, the Krev have expanded through our sector of space. They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. They conquer and strip worlds of resources." Captain Morgan's expression remained neutral, but Daniel could see the calculation in her eyes. "The Horizon Seeker is a survey vessel, not a warship. We have limited defensive capabilities. We have sent a distress signal to our homeworld," another Valaran counselor added, "but help would arrive too late." "What about your technology?" asked Major Sam Peters. "Your biological systems seem advanced. Don't you have defenses?" Nixara's color shifted to a dark blue tinged with red. "We are not warriors by nature. Our defenses were designed to protect against natural disasters, not coordinated attacks. The Krev have studied us through previous encounters. They know our weaknesses." Daniel had been quiet, studying the ship configurations on the holographic display. Something about them seemed familiar. "Their vessels appear to use standard propulsion systems," he said suddenly, "similar to older Earth designs but more powerful, which means they would have similar vulnerabilities. Energy systems, navigation arrays, shield generators." Captain Morgan raised an eyebrow. "What are you suggesting, Lieutenant?" "We might not have overwhelming force, but we have something they won't expect. A human and Valaran alliance." Daniel stood up, feeling energy flow through him as the idea took shape. "Human tactical systems combined with Valaran biotechnology. We create something new, something they haven't encountered before." The room fell silent as both species considered this proposal. "It would require deep integration of our systems," said Dr. Paul Johnson cautiously. "We've barely scratched the surface of understanding their technology. And it would require direct neural connection," added Thalos, his skin flickering with uncertainty. "A joining of minds that we have never attempted with another species." All eyes turned to Nixara. As the liaison who had spent the most time with humans, she understood both sides best. "It is possible," she said slowly, "but dangerous. Our neural interfaces were designed for Valaran physiology. A human mind might not survive the connection." "I'll do it," Daniel said without hesitation. Captain Morgan shook her head. "This is reckless, Lieutenant. We don't have time to test properly." "We don't have time for anything else," Daniel countered. "The Krev will be here tomorrow. If Nixara is willing to attempt the connection with me, we might create a defense system that could at least buy us time." After hours of heated debate, the plan was approved. Daniel and Nixara would attempt to create an integrated defense system, merging human tactical knowledge with Valaran biotechnology. The work began immediately in the main Valaran research facility. The integration chamber was a circular room with walls that seemed to pulse with life. In the center stood two pod-like structures connected by glowing tendrils of energy. "These are neural amplifiers," Nixara explained as technicians from both species prepared the equipment. "They will allow our minds to connect with the defense systems." Daniel tried to hide his nervousness as he was fitted with sensors that adhered to his skin like living creatures. "What exactly will happen when we connect?" Nixara's colors shifted to a gentle purple that he had come to recognize as her attempt to be reassuring. "Our consciousness will join with the machines. Your tactical knowledge will guide the weapon systems, while my understanding of our technology will maximize effectiveness." She paused, her colors darkening slightly. "There is great risk, Daniel. If you touch me during the neural link, the feedback could kill us both. Our minds will be extraordinarily sensitive." Dr. Adams checked Daniel's vital signs one last time. "Your heart rate is elevated. Are you sure about this?" "No," Daniel admitted, with a small smile. "But I'm doing it anyway." As the final preparations were made, Captain Morgan approached. "This goes beyond your duty, Lieutenant. No one would blame you for stepping back." Daniel shook his head. "The Valarans don't deserve what's coming to them, neither do we. If there's even a small chance this works," Morgan nodded once, understanding. "Good luck." Daniel entered his pod, and Nixara entered hers. The transparent covers closed over them. Through the clear material, he could see her skin shifting through patterns of blue, gold, and a deep purple he hadn't seen before. "Begin sequence," commanded Thalos. A warm sensation spread from the sensors on Daniel's skin, flowing through his body and into his mind. Then came images, flashes of tactical data, weapon schematics, defensive formations. He realized he was accessing the combined knowledge of both species. In the other pod, Nixara's skin began to glow with increasing brightness. The tendrils connecting the pods pulsed faster. For a moment, Daniel felt a profound connection forming. He could sense Nixara's consciousness. Alien yet familiar, complex patterns of thought unlike his own, but somehow complementary. Then everything went wrong. A power surge caused the tendrils to flare with blinding light. Daniel felt a searing pain in his mind as too much information flooded in at once. Through the pain, he heard alarms and saw Valaran technicians rushing around in panic. Nixara's pod was shaking violently, her skin flashing with chaotic colors. Without thinking, Daniel fought to open his pod, desperate to help her. The last thing he remembered was reaching for her as both pods burst open, his fingers brushing against her arm as unconsciousness claimed him. He woke briefly in what appeared to be a medical facility. Human doctors and Valaran healers moved around him, their voices distant and muffled. His head felt strange, as if it contained more than just his own thoughts. "Neural cascade failure," someone was saying. The human's mind couldn't process the connection. "Both are in critical condition," said another voice. "We must separate the partial link before it damages them permanently." Daniel tried to speak to tell them something important, but darkness claimed him again. The next time he opened his eyes, Captain Morgan was standing beside his bed, her face showing rare concern. "The Krev fleet will enter orbit in 6 hours, she said quietly. "The integration failed. We're evacuating essential personnel to the Horizon Seeker." Daniel struggled to focus. Something was different in his mind, echoes of thoughts that weren't his own. "Nixara," he managed to say. "Where?" Is she? In their healing chamber. She's alive but unresponsive. Daniel closed his eyes, concentrating on the strange new presence in his mind. He could feel something, a connection that shouldn't be possible. I need to see her, he said, struggling to sit up. Now, before it's too late. Daniel's legs felt weak as he walked down the corridor toward the Valoran healing chamber. 2 human security officers supported him, while Dr. Adams followed closely with a medical scanner. You shouldn't be out of bed, she said, concern evident in her voice. Your brain activity is all over the charts. We don't understand what happened to you. I do, Daniel replied, though he couldn't fully explain it. Since waking, he had experienced strange flashes, images of places he had never seen, emotions that weren't his own. He knew these were somehow connected to Nixara. The Valoran healing chamber was unlike any human medical facility. The walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting gently. Soft blue light pulsed in rhythm throughout the room. Several Valoran healers moved among floating pods that contained injured patients. Thalos met them at the entrance. His skin showed, patterns of deep concern mixed with what Daniel now recognized as curiosity. She is here, he said, leading them to a pod near the center of the room. Her body heals, but her mind remains distant. Nixara floated in a clear gel-like substance, her eyes closed. Her skin shifted slowly between pale blue and white, colors Daniel had never seen her display before. Let me close to her, Daniel said, moving forward. When Thalos hesitated, Daniel added, Please, I think I can help. The Valoran elder studied Daniel's face, then nodded once. The connection was not entirely severed, he said quietly. You feel it too? Daniel nodded. As he approached Nixara's pod, the strange sensations in his mind grew stronger. He placed his hand on the transparent surface of the pod, careful not to make actual contact with her skin. Nixara, he whispered. Can you hear me? For a moment, nothing happened. Then, like a radio suddenly tuning to the right frequency, his mind filled with her presence. It wasn't words exactly, more like impressions and emotions. Fear, confusion, recognition. I can feel her, Daniel said, his voice filled with wonder. She's lost, but she's there. Dr. Adams was scanning both of them frantically. This is impossible. Your brainwave patterns are synchronizing. How can you? The failed integration, Thalos interrupted, his skin flashing with sudden understanding. Instead of connecting you both to the defense system, it connected you to each other. One of the Valoran healers approached, speaking rapidly in their musical language. Thalos listened, then turned to the humans. The Krev fleet has entered our outer defense perimeter. We have less than 3 hours before orbital bombardment begins. The evacuation is proceeding, but many will not escape in time. Daniel kept his focus on Nixara. Through their strange connection, he sent images of hope and determination. He felt something respond, weak at first, then stronger. Suddenly her eyes opened. Her skin shifted to a bright gold color that he had never seen before. Daniel, she said, her voice weak but clear, you are in my mind. And you're in mine, he replied with a relieved smile. The pod's surface dissolved, allowing Nixara to sit up. The Valoran healers rushed forward, checking her vital signs with devices that looked like living creatures. The neural bridge, she said, looking at Thalos. It formed incorrectly, but it formed nonetheless. Daniel nodded, understanding coming to him through their connection. The integration didn't fail completely. Instead of connecting us to the machines, it connected us to each other. Dr. Adams was still scanning them both. This is unprecedented. You're sharing neural patterns across completely different species. A loud alarm sounded throughout the facility. Captain Morgan's voice came through on Daniel's communicator. The Krev have accelerated their approach. They'll be in firing range. In 1 hour. All personnel return to the ship immediately. Daniel looked at Nixara, and through their connection, he knew she was thinking the same thing he was. We can still make the integration work, he said, The neural bridge between us is the key. We don't need two separate minds trying to coordinate. We have one shared consciousness now. Thalos's skin darkened with doubt. The risk is even greater now. Your minds are already tangled together. A second attempt could permanently damage both of you. If we do nothing, the Krev will destroy this world and everyone on it, Nixara replied. I have seen them do it before. Through their connection, Daniel suddenly experienced one of Nixara's memories, watching from a distance as another planet was bombarded from orbit, its surface turning from blue-green to fiery red as the Krev weapons systematically destroyed everything. The pain and loss in that memory strengthened his resolve. We have to try again now. This time, preparations were made quickly. The original integration chamber had been damaged, so they moved to a smaller backup facility. Technical teams from both species worked together with newfound urgency. The neural bridge you've accidentally formed gives us an advantage, explained the lead Valaran scientist. Your minds are already synchronized in ways we didn't think possible. Daniel and Nixara stood side by side before the new neural amplifier, a single unit now rather than separate pods. This time will be different, Nixara said, her skin showing determination in bright patterns of green and gold. But there is something you should know. Through their connection, she showed him what would happen. The more they strengthened their neural bridge, the more permanent it would become. Parts of her consciousness would remain with him forever, and parts of his with her. Are you sure? He asked quietly. Her skin shifted to a gentle lavender color he had never seen before. Yes. Are you? He nodded. As they prepared to enter the amplifier, Captain Morgan approached them. The Horizon Seeker will maintain orbit as long as possible, she said, but if the Krev break through, we'll have to retreat. Understood, Daniel replied, but we're not going to let that happen. Inside the neural amplifier, the process began again. This time, instead of fighting the connection, Daniel embraced it. He felt Nixara doing the same, their minds flowing, together like two rivers joining. Through their shared consciousness, they accessed the defense systems. Human tactical algorithms merged with Valaran biological weapons. Daniel's understanding of Krev vulnerabilities combined with Nixara's knowledge of her people's technology. As their connection deepened, Daniel experienced more of Nixara's memories. Her childhood on Valara, her years of training as a diplomat, her first encounter with the Krev that had left her family dead. In turn, he felt her experiencing his memories, growing up looking at the stars, his years at the academy, his excitement at discovering new worlds. Outside the amplifier, the technical teams watched in amazement as the defense systems came online. Living weapon platforms grew from seed pods at incredible speed. Energy shields formed like iridescent bubbles around key installations. It's working, Dr. Adams whispered in awe. In orbit, the Krev fleet had arrived. 7 massive warships, black and angular, moved into attack formation, their weapons powered up, preparing for the first devastating strike. On the main view screen in the control room, everyone watched as the lead Krev ship fired, a beam of destructive energy aimed at the planet's surface. The beam hit the newly formed shields and dissipated harmlessly. Inside the neural amplifier, Daniel and Nixara worked as one, directing the counterattack. The merged consciousness, they had become controlled living weapons with precision that neither species could have achieved alone. 2 Krev ships fell to the initial response. The others adjusted their tactics, but found themselves facing defenses that adapted faster than they could. Through it all, the neural bridge between Daniel and Nixara grew stronger. What had begun as an accidental connection was becoming something new and powerful, a true joining of minds across the gulf of different species and worlds. The battle lasted for hours. Through the neural amplifier, Daniel and Nixara directed the defense of Valara with a unity of purpose that neither species could have achieved alone. 4 of the 7 Krev ships had been destroyed, while the others retreated to a safe distance to regroup. In the control room, Captain Morgan watched the display with a mixture of amazement and concern. How long can they maintain that connection? She asked Dr. Adams. The doctor shook her head, studying her medical scanner. Unknown. Their neural patterns are so deeply intertwined now, I can't distinguish where one ends and the other begins. When the immediate threat had passed, technical teams carefully disconnected Daniel and Nixara from the amplifier. Both collapsed immediately, exhausted from the mental strain. They were taken to a special recovery chamber where both human and Valeran medical specialists could monitor them. 3 days later, Daniel woke to find himself in a comfortable bed in a room with walls that pulsed with gentle light, a combination of human and Valeran design. Nixara lay in a similar bed nearby, her skin shifting slowly through patterns of blue and gold as she slept. He could still feel her presence in his mind, but it was different now, not intrusive or alien, but a natural extension of his own consciousness. When he tried to move, he discovered that his body responded differently. His muscles seemed more efficient, his balance perfect. "Welcome back," said Dr. Adams, entering the room with Thalos. "How do you feel?" "Different," Daniel replied, his voice sounding strange to his own ears, "but good. Where are the Krev?" "They've withdrawn to the edge of the system," Thalos answered. His skin showed patterns of respect that Daniel could now perceive directly, without needing the translation device. "Our sources suggest they are. Calling for reinforcements, they will return, likely within 2 months." Daniel nodded, somehow unsurprised by his new ability to read Valeran color patterns. "And Nixara?" "Still recovering but stable," Dr. Adams said, scanning them both. "Daniel, there's something you should know. You've changed." Before she could explain further, Nixara stirred and opened her eyes. When she saw Daniel, her skin flashed with bright gold. Joy, he realized. "You feel it too?" she asked, her voice entering his mind directly even though her lips moved. "The connection is stronger," he confirmed, understanding instantly what she meant. "And different." Captain Morgan entered, followed by several high-ranking Valerans, whose color patterns indicated they were council leaders. Their skin showed complex emotions, wonder, concern, and something like reverence. "The neural bridge has evolved beyond our understanding," explained one of the Valeran scientists. "It was supposed to be temporary, but instead, it has permanently altered both of you." Over the following days, the extent of these changes became clear. Nixara's nervous system had begun producing trace amounts of the neurotransmitters unique to humans, allowing her greater emotional range and more intuitive problem-solving. Daniel's body now generated weak bioelectric fields similar to those of Valerans, giving him access to their color-based communication. Word of their successful integration spread quickly. Other humans and Valerans came forward, volunteering to attempt similar neural bridges. Some were motivated by scientific curiosity, others by the practical need to prepare better defenses before the Krev returned. In a special facility established for this purpose, 20 pairs began the process of creating their own neural connections. To everyone's surprise, each bridge developed differently, reflecting the unique minds involved. No two connections were exactly alike, but all created enhanced abilities neither species possessed alone. 6 weeks after the initial battle, long-range sensors detected the approach of a much larger Krev fleet, 23 warships moving in tight formation. "They've adapted their tactics," Daniel observed during the strategy meeting. Through his connection with Nixara, he could perceive nuances in the Krev formation that would have been invisible to him before. "And they've brought enough firepower to overwhelm our current defenses," added Captain Morgan grimly. Nixara's skin shifted to a determined pattern of green and gold. "Then we must evolve further." The next phase of their plan was more ambitious than anything either species had attempted before. The neural bridges between individual pairs would be connected into a network, a shared consciousness that could coordinate the entire planetary defense. "The risks are significant," warned the lead scientist, a Valeran named Kalen whose skin showed patterns of deep concern. "Such a network has never been attempted. The mental strain could be devastating." "If we do nothing, the Krev will destroy everyone," Daniel replied. "We have to try." The network hub was constructed in what had once been the Valoran Central Council chamber. 20 paired humans and Valorans positioned themselves in a circle around Daniel and Nixara, who would serve as the focal point of the connection. As the integration began, Daniel felt his consciousness expanding beyond anything he had experienced before. His mind touched Nixara's first, familiar and welcome, then reached outward to connect with the others. Each new mind added depth and perspective, creating something greater than the sum of its parts. Through this expanded awareness, they directed Valara's defenses with unprecedented coordination. Living weapons grew and adapted in real time. Energy shields reconfigured to counter each new Krev attack strategy. The Krev fleet entered the system, their weapons primed, but instead of facing isolated defense points, they encountered a unified response that anticipated their every move. For every strategy they tried, the human Valaran network was 2 steps ahead. 7 Krev ships fell in the first hour of battle. 5 more retreated with severe damage. The remaining vessels attempted to regroup, but found themselves surrounded by living weapon platforms that seemed to predict their movements. In the center of the network hub, Daniel and Nixara functioned as a single consciousness with dual perspectives. Through their connection, they coordinated the entire defense while still maintaining their individual identities, a balance that seemed impossible but felt completely natural. "They're retreating," announced Captain Morgan over the communication system. "All remaining Krev vessels are withdrawing from the system." The expanded consciousness of the network watched as the Krev fleet fled, jumping to faster-than-light speed as soon as they cleared the gravity well. The threat had passed, for now. Carefully, the technical teams began disconnecting the network, returning each pair to their individual connections. The process took hours, with medical teams standing by to monitor for any adverse effects. When only Daniel and Nixara remained connected to the system, they shared a private moment of communication that needed no words, just the pure understanding that came from their unique bond. As the final connections were removed, they stood together in the center of the chamber. Representatives from both species watched with a mixture of awe and hope. "What happens now?" asked Captain Morgan. Daniel looked at Nixara, whose skin glowed with warm golden light. The connection between them remained strong despite being disconnected from the amplification system. "Now we truly begin," he said. "What we've created here isn't just a defense system or a temporary alliance. It's the start of something new. A true integration of our species that makes both stronger." Nixara extended both hands toward him. "Touch me, human," she said, her skin glowing with warm golden light. "We will survive together." Daniel took her hands without hesitation. Unlike the first accidental touch that had created such tension, this contact felt right, the physical expression of a connection that ran far deeper. Around them, other human Valoran pairs followed their example, each finding their own way to bridge the gap between their different worlds. In the months that followed, the integration expanded beyond defense technology. Biological and cultural exchange flourished as both species learned they could achieve more together than either could alone. The neural bridges became a symbol of a new kind of relationship between different forms of intelligent life. And somewhere, in distant space, the remnants of the Krev fleet carried word of a new force in the galaxy. Not humans, not Valorans, but something unexpected and powerful that had emerged from their unlikely union.